we're on now.
Brian.
So you can stop being overly serious. No, um, thanks for being here. Justin is a game maker. He's made, how many games have you made at this point? That's a
Yeah,
ridiculous question. Like, what kind of music
yeah.
do you play? No one
Uh,
liked that question.
I don't know. I've made, let's say, north of 30 digital
That's a
games,
lot of games.
some
If you
physical games, toys, and other things. It's just been of my pursuit for
if
many years.
you if you could eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, any games that you have made, any of those 30 games from the universe for everyone, is there one game that you would eliminate? And for what subset of people?
Yes, that is a great question. A game
Which
that
one causes you the most pain? Go ahead.
immediately comes to mind is a title called Battlestone.
It's a great team. In retrospect, you're like, all those people have done pretty well in life, right?
Yes, I have very, very few regrets in life. Um, Close to none. That's just sort of philosophically how I think about life and how I at least attempt to lead mine. And Battlestone is a regret for a number of reasons.
Yeah, so I remember Battlestone as this fun game that we acquired, and it was a fun, playable, combat-based game, right? That's my memory of it. And the people working on that team are all good game makers. Like I've worked with Max Lynn was on it. I think Brian Tinsman might have been on it at some point. Mike Engel, JP Dumont, like tons of people who are good. You're there bouncing around. You know how to make a game.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what happened there. I don't know if I needed to start with a negative, but I do like the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. I feel like I have to like remove a game too to make it fair. What game are
No,
you most proud of? No,
it's a
no, go ahead.
good question though. So what had actually happened is that we acquired a group called November Software, and they had
Hmm.
a prototype of a mobile action RPG.
Hmm.
And this was a long time, 2012-ish, 2013-ish, somewhere in there, right?
Hmm. Yes.
The closest to anything like this on iOS at the time was maybe Infinity Blade.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, there weren't action games yet, right?
Yeah, but that was more of this like first person. It felt like more of like a tech demo or a really cool toy to sort of like prove what was possible and push the it was the Unreal Engine, I believe, for that title. And what the November folks wanted to do was full on make Diablo like touch based Diablo, which
Hmm.
was super super bold at the time. I think I mean, there's literally Diablo on mobile now, right? So I
Yeah, yeah.
suppose you say it's been done. Um, and they had this really awesome demo for it. What really stood out to me was how intuitive the combat was and how fluid the animation system was. Because you can imagine trying to do anything like that real time on mobile with limited touch controls and your little fat fingers, or at least my fat fingers, would always like get in the way of the action on the screen. So how do you make that happen? And a lot of these systems now that seem somewhat obvious, like, oh well, the game mostly is autoplay, or at least the combat is autoplay, and you either have people like go down from left to right through the screen. You don't really have a lot of exploring the level design of things like that. Like none of that had sort of been figured out and um, even really attempted at earnest. No shade on any indies that maybe were around at that time that I'm just not remembering. But what November had was something that felt super super innovative. So we put this powerhouse team on top of them because November was only three folks. Um, and we said, okay, let's stack the deck with all these amazing people to put on it. Um, and that mostly worked. But the thing that really, really did not work at all was one of the charters at Zynga, um, as I'm sure you remember, is that everything had to be as mainstream as possible.
Hmm.
So when folks that are in charge of sort of deciding tone and what we're willing to fund and what we're not willing to fund, they said, action RPG fantasy thing, I don't know, seems kind of nerdy. And I'm like, we chill out on that. Like, this will be fine.
That's like your whole life, Edzinga, now, like, you're triggering me because so we didn't even go into this, but you were, like, the GM of Mafia Wars. You had a nice run while it was in its big infancy, right? It's, like,
Mhm.
growing and, like, becomes, like, an early juggernaut in, like, 2010, and then afterwards, I you interview me actually when we were doing the acquisition, and so we're all kind of friends, and, like, we go to your studio, and you're trying to build a studio to make a game, and you're pitching 5 Minute WoW, and we're all like, "Great, let's do it." And you're hitting the same whammy, like, years later in the story you're telling now, and it's like, Justin was right, but, like, wasn't allowed to be right, right? Like, that's how it felt at the time.
It certainly felt that way at the time. Um, looking back on it now, I don't think of it as like adversarial or like I was right, they were wrong or anything like that. It's just
It's very mature.
these things are hard. Thank you. With age comes wisdom, I suppose, and sweet silver locks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like at the time, it's just like, well, there's these genres that we weren't allowed to touch, right? And fantasy was one of them, and sci-fi was one of them. Like those were the two big ones, right? And like there was definitely at least half the company at Zynga that was just like, what? Like we just want to make mass market StarCraft or like Diablo or like like pick a Blizzard game that we all grew up on, or just um, pick anything from Star
A game
Wars,
for
Star
gamers,
Trek.
right? It's
All,
they didn't want
all,
gamer games. They wanted games that were, more PopCap or more. Yeah, they didn't wanna make games for gamers, and they still don't, although Empires and Puzzles, if that's the name of it, is probably the closest they got to, like, what you were going after, right?
totally,
Yeah,
totally.
which they acquired, right? Yeah.
And the way that I was able to kind of get this off the ground to begin with is at that moment in time, Activision Skylanders was insanely, insanely popular.
Mhm.
And it was certainly something that I was very, very into. Um, so I showed the executives or the more senior executives sort of examples of this and got some data on how it was performing. I was like, look, we we could Skylanders this, and then it'll be mass market. It'll appeal to the broad audience that we want. It won't be all gory and bloody and things like that. Um, okay, and we uh, we got greenlit to start on it, and it just ruined the fucking game. It was the worst idea ever, right? Like it was meant to be a dark, brooding, almost like everything now is Souls, right? But this was
Yeah.
obviously pre Dark Souls, probably not pre Demon Souls in actuality. Although I don't think Demon Souls was on anybody's radar. Um, and that was really, I think, what this game could have been if we would have let the original creative vision for it play itself out. Uh, it may have not have been a massive hit, but I think it at minimum would have been sort of like a cult darling and had the potential to blow up. Um, we'll never know. Instead, we just made something that was very
M m
oversaturated, saccharine,
Milquetoast.
and I don't know if you remember, we had to figure out how to shove microtransactions into it. We were like, "Oh, okay, well, we're gonna do it through gear and cosmetics," and everybody's damn shoulders just looked ridiculous. Like, you would open some sort of legendary loot box, and if you got the shoulders, you're like, "Oh, cool, now I'm so wide I can no longer fit through doors."
You could go to an '80s, like, Halloween party or
Very
whatnot,
much
right?
so.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a weird project, but, like, it's funny, like, that's not the project I think of you for. Um, so you started out at Leapfrog,
Hmm?
and then you go to Zynga very like, what employee number were you? Do you know? Like, you're that early, right?
Sub 100, somewhere in the
Yeah.
80s. Yeah.
I mean, that's like getting a mythic foil or something in a magic pack, right?
It was kind of odd, right? So I was at Leapfrog. Um, I really enjoyed my time there. And honestly, like if the movie Big with Tom Hanks, right, where that kid like finds himself in the body of a toy executive and Like that's what he's doing, and that's his job. Like I just finished grad school, done a couple different projects. That was like my first like, okay, I'm done with school. Like I have a real job now, and it was as a toy designer. And every morning I would come into a literal toy factory, um, beyond belief cool, until 2008, and the economy across, the
Yeah.
country, the world to some
Housing.
extent changed dramatically. And then the types of projects that we were able to take on and work on changed, right? It went from, hey, that really popular Sonic the Hedgehog game that you made last year? Yeah, I do. Okay. Um, can you just replace all the Sonic art with SpongeBob art? And I'm like, that's not really an interesting design project, and I don't know if it would fit. They're like, well, that's just do art swaps. That's what you're doing now. That's the job. I'm like, oh,
Ugh.
okay. Well, I think it's time to perhaps pursue other opportunities. Um, and my roommate, uh, this fellow by the name of Dutch, he had just started at this startup down the street from us in downtown San Francisco. Um, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you come interview here?" I was like, "What do you do again? You make MySpace games?" Like, I'm sorry, that's the dumbest sounding thing in the world. Like, who wants to play games on MySpace?
Yeah.
And he pulled this thing up, um, and it was a text-based, like, MMO that was, oddly enough, fantasy themed, because I guess in the early days we were allowed to do that, or maybe that's why we were no longer allowed to do it, was because of
Yeah. Yeah.
some of these.
The the crime is good, fantasy is bad.
Yeah, yeah. And
Let
I was
that
like,
be a
"This is
lesson to
kinda
the world.
silly." And then he showed me this other thing that was, like, not live yet, and it was effectively Diablo 2 in a web browser.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh, wow. Okay, this is pretty interesting." Um, and I was like, "Does this stuff make money?" And he was like, "Well, the D2 in the web browser style game, like, that's not live yet. That's gonna be our big bet." But he's like, "That other thing," I was like, "That ugly text-based thing?" He's like, it kinda does pretty well, man." Uh, I was just like, "No, no fricking way. There's just no way. This is dumb. It's like some old, like, mud from, like, early internet days. Like, what's going on here? What are we even doing?" Um, but I was like, "What can it hurt? I'll go and interview." Um, and I interviewed, with this guy, Neil Souza, who's one of the
Mhm.
very first engineers there. And we just got along right off the bat. And then this other gentleman named Bill Mooney, who was my first boss and Bill's kind of like a, you know, unheralded legend in games as far as I'm concerned. That guy's been
Yeah. He's
everywhere,
done a
done everything.
ton, right? He was at Roblox, like, early. He was at Zynga very early. He doesn't have to work, but he's like, well, he's the most energetic person to talk to. Like, he has stories about pitching, like, cartoon shows and whatnot. Like, he's just creative all the time, right?
Oh,
You can't
yeah.
even really
We
stop
always
him.
called him the shark because he was just constantly moving, and we felt like if he stopped moving, he would die, much like a shark. It's like he has to be constantly in motion. Um,
Yeah.
and Bill, he was, just doing a regular interview spiel, and he looked down my resume while he was talking to me, and he was like, "You made GameInnovation.com, which was a website. It was a grad school project that I did that got some notoriety. Back in the early 2000s. It was like a pre-wiki technology, or like Wikipedia had just started to be a thing.
Mhm.
So we decided to make an equivalency to sort of document the history of games. Not unlike IMDb has just a wealth of information related to movies and who worked on it and what makes them cool. But we just wanted to open up to the community because we were like three grad students. We couldn't possibly like populate it all. And we ended up getting over 100,000 contributors to the wiki, built
Yeah.
an awesome community, which was uh, just super, super highlight of my career, just to be able to bring all these awesome people together and really bring all these old game designers out of the woodwork to tell the stories of like, Like what was the first game with a jump button?
That's you now. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, that's what we're going to get into. Like, we will talk about all the jump buttons that you have put into all these games. But it is really cool that you did this. Like, I'm kind of curious what you learned from it, right? Like, what do you still like take with you from that exercise of like building this wiki? Like, is there anything that like how did it inform like your life after grad school?
I've always been a big student of history. I feel like studying the past kind of gives us a roadmap to the future, or however that adage goes. I'm sure I bastardized some pre-existing quote, but I really wasn't trying to. Um, and that's what I wanted to accomplish with game innovation, right? I felt like the more that I could understand and document the history of games that at the time wasn't like well preserved, and there's still like tons of it that's just sort of like lost to tribal knowledge and whatnot. And I wanted to share that because I thought ultimately it would make better game designers who would in turn make better games. Um, and so to answer that question, what I learned from it, like just the power of community. And when you give a collective group a shared mission and shared purpose, and you make it clear, you get out of their way and just let them do their things.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's always going to exceed your expectations, or almost always exceed your expectations. Um, and then tying this all back around of like, why am I even rambling about this, right? So Bill noticed on my resume, and he was like, we literally used to use this as a resource at my last studio before I joined this company. And that to me was like
That's really
such a
cool.
validation of like, wow, okay. So I always wanted to be in games, never knew if I was going to be good enough to do that. The games industry, as you know, you're well aware, is extremely hard to break into.
Mhm.
Uh, and I was like, wow, okay, like I've I've made a mark. That felt like one of the first like, it's cool. I helped other people in the industry that I want to be a part of. I belong here.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting about you, like you have feelings. Like you can feel them in the conversation. You have some level of empathy. But like you become like the GM of Mafia Wars early. I don't know how that happened and whether you chose it. There was a so when I was at Warner Brothers, essentially on the mend, I was there and I was like, what do they call it? Like the John Wick? There's this character who comes in and just evaluates things and is like, what's the word for that person?
Oh,
Adjudicator or something?
like the cleaner.
No, there's this person who comes in and is like, "I will figure out what's really going on here and then make the decision." It was like a judge's.
Oh yeah, they're like an arbiter. I don't remember the John Wick
Yeah,
name.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was kinda like that, and I had this conversation with, the CEO of Craft Wars Tales and, the golf clash group, Playdemic, and I was like, "Did you really want this job?" Like, because 'cause I'm gonna, like I'm gonna be, like, asking all kinds of stuff, like, "I don't know if I'd want your job," and he's like, "Yes, I chose this job." But, like, in your case, like, how did this happen to you? And, like, it seems like you've been doing it again and again in your career, leading teams and whatnot, but how did you go from, like, leapfrog to like, all right, this is kind of interesting to like, now you're forced to lead it all, or you chose to lead it all. I don't actually even know. What
Yeah.
happened to you? Mhm.
I don't know. I've always felt a little bit of like a Spider-Man dilemma on my hands, right? Great power, great responsibility, and all of that.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where I feel like I know I'm capable of leading and doing things. I don't often like to. I'm a little bit of a reluctant leader.
You're a good creative. Like when I was at Pocket Jams with you, I was like, wow, Dustin's actually could be designing games as his core function and not leading production, right?
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's always been a
I
little
did
bit
too.
of a internal struggle, right?
Yeah.
Of like
Yeah.
which one to be. But I
Hmm.
found that um, having coded in the past, having attempted to do game design at different levels, having attempted to do graphic design, audio design, and different things over the course of, I don't know, from like middle school on through college, even in early roles, right? It gave me a lot of appreciation and empathy for the craft and all the different disciplines, right? Um, and then I felt like I'm okay at all of these things, but I'm not great at any of them. But because I understand just enough, I seem to be really good at communicating and
Yeah.
kind of being the bridge between all these folks that don't always know what the hell each other is saying,
You're a natural producer.
I suppose. I suppose. So I found myself as a producer at Leapfrog, and toy designer slash game designer, whatever. Um, got to be on a lot of products, ship a lot of things, which was great. Um, but I never really had the opportunity to lead, right? And Leapfrog again, great company, but it's one of those that's very much like put your time in, prove yourself again and again and again, and then you'll get those opportunities. Um, which is fair, but not for me, right?
But who wants fair? No, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
who wants
Yeah.
fair and who has the patience for any of that, right? For me, I was
Yeah.
like, life is short and I've got a lot of stuff that I want to do. I got a lot of stuff that I want to make. Like, let's go get after it. And I really struggle with being told what to do if I don't agree with what is being said, right? If I just don't agree with the direction of a project, I can't keep my mouth shut, right?
No, you
And
should. Yeah. It's not healthy for
yeah,
anything.
so to that, going back to that example earlier, like making the Sonic game was awesome. Being told to reskin it into SpongeBob was not awesome. And once there was enough of that, it's just like, okay, well, I don't think um, this is a good fit anymore. Let's go do other things. So I find
Yeah, you
myself
got
making MySpace games,
yeah.
right? Um,
Was it really
and
MySpace or was it Facebook yet?
yeah, so it was MySpace. So I got there and I was working on Mafia Wars MySpace.
Mhm.
Facebook had just launched, and Mooney said to me, he was like, "Hey, okay, this is a weird space. It's constantly evolving and changing, and it's not always intuitive how these platforms work. So um, I want you to." I was like, "Oh, I got it. You hired me to build a new game. Like, so I'm going to build a new game." And he's like, "Hold up, there, buddy. Like, you don't get to build anything new yet, and certainly not on MySpace. That makes all the money. We can't have you mucking it up, right?" Uh,
Mhm.
so he said, "Why don't you take one of the variants of Mafia Wars? You can pick any social media platform you want. You can pick Rock You, you can pick High Five, you can pick uh, I don't know. There was like one or two other odd ones, and he was like, can you
Tagged?
pick
Tag might
Facebook,
have been around.
Tag,
Yeah.
yeah, Tag was there."
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I said, "Oh, I'll pick Facebook." Right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, okay, have fun with that. Because at the time, see, this seems silly, and you're smiling because we all know how the story plays out, right? But at the time, like apps and all of this stuff on Facebook was in its very infancy. Like there wasn't even uh, any way to monetize on Facebook when we did this. So he was like, "I don't know if you should take the one that literally makes no money at all, dude. That might not be the wisest idea." Um, but I was sort of like a Facebook native, as it were, right? Having gone to Carnegie Mellon, and we were in that first cohort
Yeah.
of
Colleges.
when Facebook was, obviously started at Harvard and then went through the Ivy League, and then they expanded it, and you had to have like an invite with your school or your college email address and all that. So
Mhm.
I have a really short friend ID on Facebook.
I'm like, and now I need to know what my friend ID is. Continue. I'm looking, but continue. Go on.
Um, anyway, so I was like, I think I know enough about Facebook that at least the learning curve will be lessened and we'll figure it out. Um, so I took over Facebook and started working with my team, making a ton of suggestions about not only how to improve the game, but also making suggestions back to Facebook on how to improve the platform for our game and other games. Um, and that worked out pretty well, right? Um,
Yeah, for sure.
so we were blowing up on Facebook, um, and good times all around. And I remember those early days in Zynga. Every Friday we would do a happy hour on the rooftop of the chip factory, um, which was one of the buildings that Mark, our CEO, Mark Pincus, he owned that. So we would just get up there on the roof, have a couple beers, whatnot. And we were up there one day, and I saw that there was like a big group like circling around someone. So I was like, oh, Mark must be here, and people are coming over there to just kind of kiss his ass a little bit, because that's what you do at a startup when the CEO makes a appearance, right? You're just trying to get face time, because
Mhm.
there's no rules, right? Like whoever can kind of get in there and kind of impress him, maybe that's a promotion the next day, right? Or
That is
maybe
that is not my bias. Like, I saw Mark a lot, but I was not like, "Hey, I'm gonna go hang out and chat him up." But continue. This is
it,
a
it was
difference between humans.
it was different in the very early days. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm sure.
I don't know. Um, so I went over there, and I had had a couple of beers, and he was talking about something, and I was just like, no, I don't even remember exactly what it was. It's something about oh, he was talking about RTS games, 'cause he was a huge fan of Rise of
Rise of
Nations.
Nations.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was talking about how it was such an innovative RTS, and it did all these things. Um, and everyone was like, oh, just like eating it up. And I go over there and I'm just like, no. He was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, all those things that you just attributed to Rise of Nations actually came out first in Herzog's Way on the Sega Genesis, because that's actually the first RTS. And he was just like, wait, what did you just say? And I was like, look, we're just having a conversation about RTS, and like, you're saying things that are wrong. And I don't think you're the type of person that wants to go around saying things that are wrong. So I'm correcting you. And he was just kind of looked at me funny and was like, oh, okay, cool. And just sort of continued the conversation. And then, that proceeded for maybe like another 10 minutes. And then I walked away, and I was like, huh, wonder if I'm going to get fired tomorrow.
He liked that sort of thing, right? He definitely like, there are different people with different wants. Mark Rosewater definitely responded to people who had that kind of Hollywood hustle, and so it was interesting working, like, he and I didn't have an adversarial relationship, but, like, he responded very well to the people who were selling to him. And so I think Mark has a similar vibe where he's had to sell like a bunch of companies at this point. He knows what pluck looks like, and like showing it in that fashion, like you're speaking his language, right? You're speaking to what he wants to see, which is great. Right. I don't think it's bad. I don't know that I felt that way when I was at Zynga, but like at this point, I'm like, oh, it's natural. You should just say hi and have a chat, right?
Indeed. Indeed.
You have had when did you start having chutzpah? This has actually become a really interesting question to ask people who have like, since you've long had chutzpah, but like, was there a point where you were like, "Oh, I will go make a thing happen"? It doesn't have to be like Mafia Wars related. It's more like, when did you get confidence, right? Like, it doesn't come naturally for all people, or did you have it naturally, right?
I I think it was something that from a very early age, my dad put into me.
Okay.
There's always that element of like, parents, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up, right? Um, but it was more than that. It was just like, dude, you are gifted intellectually. Like, don't mess that up, right?
Mhm.
Uh, just a constant reinforcement of almost like, back to the Spider-Man thing. This is your responsibility to go and like either pursue exactly what you want to pursue or go make the world a better place. Like, those are your options. And if you can
Yeah.
do them at the same time, great.
Mhm.
But definitely don't just be sitting on the couch. Don't just have like a normal career path or whatever that is. Don't sell yourself short. Um, so he had sort of made that aware. I don't know if I like uh had evolved and it had like sort of come out. I hadn't like found my planeswalker spark yet, right?
Okay.
Um, but then I'll be brief here because this is gonna get really sad for a minute. He died when I was 13. And
That, that is really
then
sad.
after that, and my parents were previously divorced, but at least I got to like spend time with both of them, right? So then at that point, it was just my mom and I, and we didn't always have the best of relationships. And there was a point in time um, where we had moved around a lot, and I was sort of sick of it, from state to state, city to city, from I don't know, kind of the time I was like 7 onwards, right? So now flash forward, and I'm like 15. I had been to, I don't know, 9 or 10 different schools at that point, so I was constantly the new kid, right? So that's what builds up the armor of like fast talking and all of that to sort of just like fit in, like you know, make jokes and just kind of find a way to like not get the shit kicked out of you every day for being the new kid. Uh, so I'd started up at my high school in South Florida, and she was like, "Hey, we're moving to South Carolina." I said, "No, we're not. Like, you can, but I'm not." So there was a little bit of like,
Uh,
it's starting to fire, right? She was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna go, and
wow.
you call me when you run out of money and you need a place." And she left. Um, and I figured it out.
That's kind of amazing. I feel like there are a couple of undertones there that I kind of picked up. Like one is like with your dad passing early, like there's this undertone of like the reason you try to make great products and essentially like make the world a better place is in some way to honor him. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah,
like a seed,
no doubt.
right? And then the other aspect is like you've just been like hustling since you were a teenager pretty much. And those two things in tandem like lead to where you are today. No, that's really cool that you told that story, because, um, it's been interesting, like, to see how people wake up in different ways. Like, not you don't start, like, at the end, right, of your journey. You definitely, like, transform over time. So, well, we'll keep talking about things where you evolve. I guess I'm kind of curious, like, of all the projects that you've worked on, which one do you think your dad would be the most proud of?
Wow, that's a great question.
You've done a lot of stuff,
I have
which we
done a
haven't
lot of
even gotten
stuff.
to yet.
B The one that kinda jumps out, for odd reasons. So my dad was a bit of a renaissance man, like, could, do fine arts, could sing, could compose, played multi instruments, was in a band, toured the country, all that fun stuff. Um, crazy, I felt like, because he died before he was 50, but I felt like in his 50 years on the planet, he lived, like, 5 plus lives, right? So
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, "Damn, that is a high, high bar for me, try to figure out." And they were so diverse. But I think other than screenwriting, his number one passion was music. Um, and I got to work on a, wait for it, High School Musical game while I was at Leapfrog,
I have seen that movie many times with, some daughters of mine, and, it's actually a great IP, but continue.
which which is silly. But why I love this project so much is, the majority of the educational products that Leapfrog makes teach reading and math because that's what sells, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Um,
also useful.
and it's also incredibly useful, right? Um, so I'd made a fair share of those, and they did well. And we had the opportunity to get the High School Musical IP, and we were sitting around like trying doing pitches for what it could be. And I was like, "Can we make a game that teaches music?" Like, that seems like the most obvious thing because everyone was sort of going down all these odd paths, and they were like,
It does seem on theme. It does
We
seem
developed
like it's in the
that.
notes.
I was like, but it sure would be fun to try, right? And I mean, regardless of how good the educational component of it is, like it will probably sell well enough just off the back of the IP. So like, let's take a swing, right?
I hope you did karaoke because that's the natural fit, but keep going.
Um, so we made this game that taught basic melody and harmonies and different things like that. And it was in a lot of ways kind of like a beat matching game that we did on this little proprietary handheld um, to teach kids all this stuff. It sold fine, right? I don't think it was like a breakaway hit or anything like that. But just getting to do that, right? Getting to work on something that was literally meant to teach children music and hopefully develop a love of music for them. Um,
Mhm.
that meant a lot to me, and I think that would mean a lot to him.
That's a really cool answer. I did not expect that specific answer. This is a very unpredictable.
Excited you asked the questions. It actually is a good question, Brian.
I appreciate that. You're giving abnormally good answers. It's spurring me on. All right, we'll go back to Zynga. So you do your Facebook game. There are a couple of things that make Zynga interesting. So one, like you had great chutzpah and like rightfully planted the right seeds with Mark. You end up there are a couple of interesting things to me, which is like there's a culture of being like data driven to an extreme. Like when does that show up in the process of making these things? Because you're talking about doing like discovery based building. And then at some point, like there's a clamp brought down. And so it's like, how did you deal with that as a creative person who's also quantitative, but like you can make products based on feel, right? Um, so that's an interesting like tension. Like how did that come about and how did you interface with that? The data driven nature of things.
I mean, for me, I had never really been exposed to anything on that level, which I mean, what we're talking about, right? For the folks that may or may not be super familiar, is historically game design is some people go into a room and they just kind of they've played a lot of stuff. They're typically high empathy or they're really good at various systems and math, and they kind of come together and they argue with each other in a room. And there's a little bit of arm wrestling that happens, and depending on the
That's magic, like entirely right. Yeah.
yeah, like depending on the team dynamics, right? Like someone wins the arm wrestle, right? And then their idea is what ends up shipping or at least getting implemented, right? There's far less testing at that point, right?
Hmm.
Um, Meanwhile, while all this is happening in games land, right? You've got all these like product managers that work for tech companies in Silicon Valley. And they're working on boring, morose things, right? Like, how do I optimize the shopping cart experience on Amazon?
eBay or yeah.
Yeah, it's not incredibly creative. I mean, it can be, right? No offense to those folks, but for the most part, like
Oh, I hear you.
you're just trying to optimize a metric, right? You're just trying to
You and I
optimize a number.
you and I both went to like work in the health industry, and it's like so much. It's really nice to do help people, and making games is far more fun. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, yeah. So I find myself at having had many of those meetings while I was at Leapfrog of just like the creative arm wrestling and you kind of figure out whatever tactic you need to sort of win that. At Zynga, I remember being in one of these rooms, like one of our conference rooms, having this type of design conversation, and Mark was guys, shut up, just test both ideas.
Yeah.
And we were like, wait, what do you mean? He was like, no, just you want to do this, you want to do that. Go get an artist to spend no more than an hour. He's like, I'm going to be pissed if anyone spends more than an hour on this. Go create two mock-ups of what the feature looks like, and we're going to show half the players one and half the player the others, and whichever one has better engagement and better clicks, we're going to pursue that. And I was like, you can do that? Like,
Yeah. I mean,
oh, wait a second. You mean we don't have to argue anymore? Like, we can just go and test it really quickly, right?
mhm.
Um, and then both people get the opportunity to sort of like see if their idea has merit or not, right? And obviously, this grain of salt with all of this stuff, right? But at that moment in time, it made our entire team be like, "Oh, wow, like, we all have the creative freedom to go and try and test our ideas." And
Yeah.
it just became this cool competition of like, well, whoever has the best idea, the most creative idea in this instance that performs the best wins. It's not unlike brewing a magic deck, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
all
for
have
sure.
different ideas on what deck to bring to the tournament, what's going to do best in the current meta or cultural zeitgeist, right? And it's always shifting and evolving, right? So your idea might be great right now, but not so good in the future, or vice versa, right? Um,
Mhm.
so we can just test that. And then whichever idea is the best for that moment in time, it kind of rises to the top and you win the tournament of that day. And then next week, there's another tournament and so on and so forth.
I thought that team was oddly well suited to, like, being competitive in a friendly way within itself. Like, the personalities on that team, um, a lot of MBAs, a lot of, like, people with the game making background, like, engineers that, like, were already battle hardened, it felt like, and so, like, the Mafia Wars team in particular felt like it competed together in, like, the most copacetic way that I saw. Like, I didn't hang out with the farm build team as much. They seem pretty great too. But, like, I am a little bit curious, like, how you thought about talent with that team because I did think it was one of my favorite teams to interface with. They seemed really sharp and they had good team processes around things. Also, being a web page really helps you learn really quickly, right? That's a
Indeed.
big advantage
Yeah.
versus like trying to build in an ISO or 3D world. How did you build the team? Like, that's an interesting. I don't know the answer.
Um,
How did it happen?
that's a that's a great question. I think we had we had a handful of really amazing engineers um that sort of seeded the team, right? So when I came onto it, I inherited two of like the very early Zynga employees, Neil and K2. Um, he was K2 because there was another Kyle, right? So there was just like all these Kyles, and they all had uh, numbers appended to their names. So Neil and K2, and then Dutch, my roommate. So I just had like this. Looking back on it, like ungodly amount of super engineers, right? That I was partnered with. Um, and what was interesting about them is they all came from very diverse backgrounds, especially academically, right? So from
Mhm.
very early on, we just decided, look, we don't give a shit where you got your degree or if you even have a degree, because like Dutch and I came from Carnegie Mellon, woohoo, us, right? Like tons
Mhm.
of student debt, like for that, but like it didn't make us better or smarter than the dudes that were just self taught and were just able to just hustle and get stuff done. And that's what the mix of like the four of us were,
Mhm.
right? So we just said, look, like we're just going to evaluate everyone on their merits, and are they people that we would want to have a beer with? Because shit's going to get crazy and we're going to be here a lot.
Yeah.
So we all have to like each other, right? And the more sort of diversity in backgrounds and things of that nature, we thought the better. So that was our hiring philosophy. And then I had the good fortune of um, our friend Jean Paul Dumont.
Mhm.
He got brought in, was working on a project, and he was just having trouble sort of getting his ideas across, right? Um, but he was also part of the Carnegie Mellon Mafia. Um, so I always just wanted to understand. I was like, I know this guy's smart, right? He comes from the same like design background as I do when it comes to game design. Like, I don't, what's not clicking here? Because he seems like one of the most talented guys we have, right?
Mhm.
And when I sat down with him and he was explaining what he wanted to get accomplished, I was like, can we, can I help? Like,
Yeah.
I, because I think you're right. It's just the delivery. is off for this environment because you're so
Yeah.
trained to the last place that you were at. And this is just a very, very different place in terms of how it operates. Like he was at a large publisher that, they expect a certain amount of polish and rigor and everything before you're even allowed to go in the room. Like I joke about like at some of these companies, they don't make software, they make slideware, right?
Hey, man, I spent 3 months on one deck one.
Blah, blah.
Yeah, it was a beautiful deck. I got a lot
Uh,
of praise.
I'm sure. And Zynga at
Number
this
one.
moment was like, if you came into anything with slides, like Mark was gonna kick you out of the room instantly and be like,
Yeah, yeah.
You spent your time doing what? Like,
Too slow.
yeah, like borderline get fired for something like that. Um, so, you know, John Paul was super open to it, to his credit, because that's a hard place to be in, right? Like when you know you're good and you've had a track record, but now it's not working out. Um, and yeah, we sort of were able to sort of expose a lot of his great ideas and get them heard. Um, and then they started to take off, and then the game was just doing incredibly well. So we were able to scale it up. 'Cause we were like 10 or 12 people when I joined the team. Uh,
Mhm.
and then now we've just got sort of like open season to hire as much as we want. Um, and at that point I was like, look, the right now is in super great shape, but I worry about the future, meaning the future of the game. Like, how much longevity does this stuff have? How do we make something that lasts a long time? Like, we
Mhm.
need people that think far ahead, right? And design things that can last. And as you're well aware, one of my favorite games on the planet is Magic, that I've been playing since 94, 95. I was like, I wonder if we could hire people from Wizards. And then we hired Henry Stern. And that was the
Yeah, that
next
guy.
like game
Hmm.
changing moment for the game and for the Mafia Wars studio.
Do you have Vegas Showdown? I have a good Henry Stern story. Do you have this game? Because, like, it's cool that he worked on Mafia Wars specifically because there was a competition. It was like for $3,000, anyone in the company could design a game, and for whatever reason, Henry Stern's just like, "I wanna make a board game," and he makes Vegas Showdown, which wins the competition, and I think it's still in print, like, it's actually a good game, and so he just it was really cool to see, when he lights up, like, he is really sharp, and can do some really interesting creative things, and I think Vegas Showdown is, like, one of the moments where I'm like, it was very cool to see Henry in his element and just grooving really well. But
I
anyway,
was
so you pick no, no,
I
go
was
ahead.
this many years old when I learned about Vegas Showdown, and now I'm gonna go find it.
Yeah, I have a copy. I could prove it. That's all I have to say. I know where it is in my house, and I played it when he was making it, and it was really cool. It came up on a Brian Tinsman call. Brian and I talked on Friday, and he also was at Zynga for a short time. But he won a design a set competition, and so Henry's game got made, but Brian's set didn't, and so it was like, what? Why? And that was really sad. So you bring in Henry, and Mafia Wars does have like a nice life to it, right? It's probably in the billion plus club, I would assume, total revenues,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
easily,
Well,
right?
well into that club. Couple 100 million players, and was a text-based MMORPG that was live for over 10 years. And there's not too many games that can say that they existed as a game as a service for over 10 years.
No, I mean, it's pretty impressive. It's come up a few times, like, working on games that last a long time, like, the stuff you did at Pocket Gems, I think is still around, right?
War
Or the
Dragons,
stuff you
yeah.
yeah, the stuff you incubate there. I think, working on Magic, it certainly means more than working on Cityville or Treasure Isle or any game that doesn't last. And so it is kind of a I think it's a requirement just to work on a product that's meant to last for me. Like, for me to be happy, it does feel like you have to dream there's going to be a future where it's alive, um, which is interesting.
I go back and forth on that.
Mhm,
On one, um, this idea of working on something that's sort of like a forever game or a forever franchise is really compelling. Um, Certainly not when I was younger, right? It was always about just like um, high quality quantity, but quantity over everything else, right? Like I just want to do as much stuff as possible, right?
exploration, right?
Yeah, I want my shelf to just be lined with all of the different games that I've made, right? That felt like a goal for better or for worse. Um, and I see the merit in both, right?
Mhm,
Because some of those games that last a long time, it's just incredible when you think of, whether it's these social games that we work on with Zynga or mobile games or whatever, like the Candy Crushes, the Clash of Clans of the world, the Farmville, the Mafia Wars, all of that. Um, it's certainly an experience and it's a journey worth going on to be certain. Um, but it's a certain type of story, right? Whereas there's some shorter stories that would not fit into that mold whatsoever.
mhm,
But there's still stories that are deserving of being told, and they're games that are, in my opinion, deserving of being made.
okay. Yeah, I think it kind of depends on whether you're doing something for commercial benefit or not, right? Um,
Yes. For sure, for sure.
yeah, I can agree with what you're saying. It's still like, if you're like, which one do I value more from like a proud of the work that we put in perspective, it's like Magic beats Cityville any day, right? It's the long-term benefit like shows from that in a way that like Cityville was very good from a learning perspective and a growth perspective. It's like a bit like being a hobbit and then going on the journey to like throw the ring in Mordor. I think a lot of us on the creative side felt like that at the time. But it's great, once you succeed, the world is without Saruman or whatnot. That's a worthwhile endeavor.
Indeed,
But,
indeed.
well, yeah, I kinda wanted to know, so Justin, you have a sheet of magic cards, I think, behind you? What is that?
That is an uncut sheet of War of the Spark.
Okay.
Um, and I would like to say that it has a very interesting origin story. Um, but alas, it is not that interesting. When Wizards was first starting to figure out how to, maybe not first, but uh, in the last 10 to 15 years, when Wizards was starting to think about how to expand its offerings, right?
Mhm.
And um, dipping their toe into the premium end of the market, right? They had uh, mythic draft boxes that came out,
Okay.
right? Um,
Mhm.
and in order to like they came with like special edition planeswalkers and then a bunch of um other packs, and you could get them and play like a draft event or a sealed event with them, right? And the only way to order them was through their website. And I think uh most folks that have tried to order online from Wizards knows that that's not their strength, right? They've gotten remarkably better over the
Mhm.
years, but digital experiences were not always something that Wizards was known for, especially the e-commerce aspect of that.
Not their
Uh,
DNA, yeah.
so I was in a queue for a product, got the confirmation that I had purchased said product, and then they were like, "Oops, sorry." But the moral of the story and why I like it there, and one, it's a great conversation piece, but Um, Wizards sent that to me for free
That's really cool. Okay.
as
That's cool.
"Hey, we're sorry that not only did we make you sit in line in this queue, right? We also got your hopes up that you won and you got the product, right? Because it's like when you queue at Ticketmaster and you're like trying to get those front row seats and you're like, oh my God, I got front row seats. And then they like,
It's very good
okay,
customer service, right? Like
yeah,
that's you like Wizards more because of that, I assume.
exactly. Brand loyalty, man. I was like, whoever was driving that campaign or whoever was running customer service at the time, I would like to know actually just to say thank you directly. This was one of the coolest sort of customer loyalty, customer service things that I think I've ever experienced.
I'm gonna ask you a question that puts the rest of the call in jeopardy. I'm joking, but what's your favorite Magic epoch? Your favorite window of time as a player?
Ooh,
So you play Magic. You've been playing a long time, but like this puts you to the test. Who are you in the Magic player universe, really? What Magic defines what Justin Cinicolo wants out of the game best?
um,
You will be
I
judged.
I have two moments come to mind. But the one that I will go with is so I've been playing off and on since I started fourth edition. Um,
Yeah, that's the beginning enough.
played a lot then, and then took a big break as life, school, and everything else happens. And then at some point, after I was with my now wife, I'm just like, oh, I have so much more time. I don't have to worry about dating anymore and that whole scene and all of that, and I can just like kind of relax a little bit,
Hmm.
right? I can
Hmm.
have nerdy habits again because I've already tricked my wife into marrying me. So um,
Surprise! This is what you get married. This is what
yeah,
was
you
behind door
married a
number two.
nerd. Um, and she was visiting her mom one long weekend or something. So I just was like, damn, what do I do with myself? I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to an LGS store and just see what product is out. Um, and man, did I fall off the magic wagon at that point, right? Um,
Hmm.
RTR had just come out, um, or no, Innistrad had just come out. Innistrad had just come out. Uh, one of my favorite sets of all time. One because it was like what I got back into Magic with, but also
Mm,
Innistrad is just phenomenal. Like the plane
it's
itself,
very good.
the Drac experience is amazing.
Mhm.
Um, so we were playing a lot of limited in my group, but we decided to do some constructed as well. I I built this crazy control deck and took it to GP San Jose. I think, yeah, let's go with San Jose. That sounds right.
Yeah,
Um,
they play Magic there.
and I went like 005 on day one
Hmm,
because I built this deck that was really really hard to beat it,
that is a goal,
but it
right?
was
Like you,
also really
you're
really
like,
hard.
I'm not going to lose on day one at all. You achieved something that probably very few people have ever achieved.
It was also really really hard to win, right? Um,
Yeah,
and then afterwards, I was just like, well, that's that's not fun. And I'd spent I don't know like $500 on the deck, and I was like, ugh, I just spent $500 on this deck that's like not really going to
you
win
should.
anything.
You shouldn't tell your wife about your investment in that specific journey. In that.
It's mostly just going to annoy opponents and myself. Uh,
There's some well, yeah. If it
and
hurts you,
and when standard rotates, the $500 is going to be worth not that.
mhm,
I was like, I need to move to eternal formats. And modern was really starting to shine at that moment. And I was like, oh, there's so much diversity here. Um, and I built a modern Tron deck, and I have not looked back since. Like,
okay.
give me big mana ramp all day long. Let me do broken things. That's where I want to be.
Yeah, it's more fun. Like, uh, the unfair cards were definitely the most fun to me, not like the really balanced cards. Like if a set's too balanced, like Mercadian Masks comes up as being too balanced. I think Kamigawa has a little bit of like it is not as like myopic or as limited as Masks was, but you want to feel like you're powerful when you're playing the game, and if you don't, there's probably something wrong. It's kind of like what you're talking about. You're going to go 005 and wonder why either of you like agreed. Like,
Yeah, you're like, what am I doing with my life? Like,
yeah,
did we have fun? I no, probably not.
like we're describing human life before education, right? You're like, we just hung out and didn't interact in any meaningful way. We had like physical, but we like humans couldn't do anything in the beginning, and it was probably pretty boring
Yeah, yeah.
relative to today.
Contrasted with something like Tron, where it's like, look, I'm gonna do something nuts powerful in pretty short order. So now let's play a chess game of bluffing when to deploy things. Um, and that to me, that poker aspect of the game is some of the most fun, and it also
Hmm.
narratively fits, right? Like here I am as a wizard, like ramping up in power, and if I get to cast this spell, like I win as I should, right? But if you can foil me before the casting goes off, well played, wizard.
It's all fair.
It's all fair.
It's a fair universe. You all know what you're getting into. Well, that's fair. I can tolerate that. Like that epoch was a good one. If you were like, I like Homelands or I like Fallen Empires or something, I would stop the call because that's not acceptable. No, I'm just kidding.
When we were at Pocket Gems,
Mhm.
I I think this may have been right before you were hired, or you could tell me, because there was a big uh, Magic uh,
Mhm.
culture within Pocket Gems. We did a lot of um, sealed leagues within the company, and a lot of like games at lunchtime or like after hours. We would get together and draft.
Yeah.
Someone was adamant, and they will remain nameless for now, of doing a Fallen Empires draft, and I was like,
Who
"This is a
was this?
bad idea for a lot of reasons."
I
And we're like,
It
"No, it's
happened, right?
going to be awesome," and it happened.
Yeah,
Yes,
I remember it happening, yeah.
and yeah, um, Magic isn't an interesting game when it's just, all
It was not.
information is publicly available, and it's just a really obnoxious math equation that you have to solve every time you do combat.
And did you have enough counters? Like, Pocket Gems was a gaming forward company, but, like, that's an abnormal amount of counters that you need to have prepared. Like, pennies, like, that's, in a time where we stopped carrying pennies by and large. So, like,
Yeah.
you have to, like, start taking apart board games just to play with the set. Like, all right, we have dice from all these different experiences or whatnot. Um, yeah, it was the first game that required you to, like, dismantle a whole bunch, like, that set required you to take something, a little bit of something from everywhere. It was like getting married, but uh, that was fun to say. It was fun to say. Yeah, it's interesting. You and I both end up working on episode, but not at the same time and not in the same ways. I don't even know if people know what Episode Interactive is. It's this weird, very successful business that's been around for over a decade now. It allows people to create interactive stories and make that into a business. And it's you know, once I got to it, it was making we'll talk about your lead up, but when I get there, it's making like 20 million. And they're just starting to realize, oh, this will be a thing. And then like I take over basically monetization and it goes from 20 million to 65. And then the next year, 65 to 85. And it's still the category winner for the younger set in that space. Where did that come from? How did that start? And what's your role in that ecosystem?
Yeah.
We,
So
yeah.
when I joined Pocket Gems in 2012, right? You
Hmm.
basically have three people at the helm: Ben Liu, the CEO, and then the two original founders, Harlan Crystal and Dan
Hmm.
Terry, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Harlan's more of he was also the CTO, so he's all about like wanting to make really big, beautiful things and push the technology forward. And Daniel, as you know, is he's a lot more introverted than I had expected first. Like, having seen some of his talks and met him a couple times in different like M&A settings and whatnot. Just super reserved, super thoughtful dude. Um, and I was the first executive that was hired externally. Like they had done, to their credit, they had done a phenomenal job
Yeah, it's a
over
great team.
growing the company, scaling it up to north of 200 people working across numerous successful projects. And the appeal to me was that they felt the Zynga of mobile,
Mhm,
right? At the time,
mhm.
um, they were just like, forget the web, forget the social networks. We are just going to focus on iOS and then in turn Android, and had a number of hits. But they knew that the mobile as a platform to develop and also to make quite a bit of money, like the cat was out of the bag, and now you've got all these other folks coming in. So they felt like they needed to do certain things to sort of compete in that space. Um, and they hired me, and so I was like the Zynga guy, that obviously had a pretty good track record of all the stuff that I had done at Zynga, and sort of knew how to scale and build studios. Because up to that point, everything that they did was, hey, we've got this little team of 5 people, but they didn't know how to maybe 10, maybe 15 people, but they didn't know how to make a team bigger than that, right? It just was nothing that they had any experience with it, and they're collectively, they're all super intellectual, super thoughtful folks that really like to run through all the different permutations of,
Very quantitative forward too, right?
yeah, of
The
what could
analytical part is
happen.
very high.
Um, and they didn't want to mess it up, right? So when I came in, a lot of what my role was, in addition to, I was working on a new project with a small team, that we were kind of super selling before super selling was a thing. It certainly wasn't a verb the way that it gets thrown around now in the industry. Um,
Mhm.
of like, how do we take all these little teams that we have, and how can we double down on the big things that we really want to believe in? Because otherwise, we're just kind of nickel and diming our way there, and that's not going to work. It's going to stop working. They were already starting to see that in the data, right? So we basically transformed the company into 2 internal studios. One that was focused on um, 3D games and trying to
Mhm.
bring 3D to mobile, and another one that was focused on how do we what does narrative look like on mobile? What does short form narrative look like, and how does that play itself out? So I want to be completely clear that the vision for both of those different work streams, one was Harlan's and one was Daniel's, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
they're the visionaries behind both of these highly successful products, and they never ever would have been possible without them and all the effort that they poured into it.
Mhm.
My role was basically to say, like, this is what we want to do. How do we build the teams? How do we set them up for success to go and carry this out? So, on one hand, we built um, a AAA mobile game studio, right? And we built a proprietary War Dragons engine around that. And how do you build an engine team that supports the game? And what's the relationship between engine team and the game team, and the client versus the back end and all of that fun stuff? And
Mm,
uh,
yeah.
they also had very limited experience with 3D. Like all their games up to that point had been 2D. So how do we build a world class 3D art team? Um, and all the things that come along with that. So a lot of my focus there was just in hiring the talent, like teaching them how to fish and how to build a team so it could be sustainable and scalable. And then similarly with with Daniel and episode. But what was interesting on that, as you're intimately aware of, is like when people see episode, they're just like, oh, okay, there's this app that I download, and it there's a carousel of stories. It's like Netflix for these like short
Yeah.
little vignettes, right?
Mhm.
And that's all well and good, and there's microtransactions involved, and now like that's evolved into from 2D vignettes to actual movies made with generative AI, and
Live
uh,
action,
micro
all that stuff.
dramas filmed in China, and it's taken off. It's become this huge space.
Yeah.
Um, But that's just the tip of the iceberg for a product like that. What
Mhm.
people don't understand is there's this whole um, layer underneath that is like, how do you actually have anyone in the world that has a great story that they want to tell? How do you build the infrastructure and tooling for
Yeah.
them to take their idea and actually have it show up in that front end, right? Um, so again, that was just like, how do we build both sides of this, right? This like cross-platform product that's both the creator side and the reader side or the player side. Um, and how do we set up our pipelines in such a way that um, it can be accessible and there's not this huge hurdle for any creator to have to get over in order to contribute content. Because if you don't have a lot of people contributing content, you don't make that as easy as possible, you're dead, right? It fails. And this just circling back because all of these things have origin stories, right? The beginning of the call, we talked about my experience on game innovation and setting up that community
Mhm.
and making it. It was a decided choice to use the Wikimedia technology to build the product because I was like, okay, that's going to have the lowest friction and it's going to get the most people on board. So how do we do something similar for episode, right? And in this point in particular, um, we need to have an avatar system or a character system, um, paper dolls, as it were, um, that's as accessible and easy for people to get into and pose and animate as possible, or else you're just not going to have content.
It's actually bonkers. Like, there's so much about it, like, that's really neat where, like, I think from the beginning, Daniel in particular was like, "I want this to be a UGC platform where people can tell stories." And so, like, there could have been a point where, like, the Choices game that came after, they could have just put out first party story and, like, tried to live off of that, but, like, that just wasn't what Daniel believed in, right? Daniel believed in creating this, like, code library essentially and this asset library, and then this, like, management system on top to get the stories into the game that allowed for interesting, discovery later. And then on top of that, social media platforms allowed those stories to spread, creators to talk about what they're doing, which fanned the flames of what was going on. It's like an incredibly novel and neat way to go about it. I think one thing that's funny about this story is like when you guys are working on it, like, you take all the assets from campus life and what other games we had made in 2D or whatnot,
Yeah.
and then you make these, like, nascent versions of apps, and, like, the story as I've heard it, and I'm interested if you know any more about it, is there were, like, 15 or 20 different prototypes that went live before one hit. I'm kind of curious, like, what, like, that graduation path was, right? Because once you found what hit, it, like, the whole company ended up starting to take the bet seriously.
Yeah, it wasn't it in my memory and others that were closer to it, because I was in some ways like a consultant that was just coming in and out of the different things while I was doing my day job working on, this other project. It was, um,
Oh, yeah.
uh,
You had a game a game team you
an
were
action
running, right?
RPG
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
wanted to try and mend the wrong that I had done to the world with Battlestone.
You got a good team. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but that's a different story. Uh, what I remember though is that it wasn't like a big one or two big like, haha, that's it, right? It was just a series of iterative small changes and optimizations and just not sexy, right? Um,
Mhm.
just grinding and grinding and grinding until eventually you just like got above the threshold and it worked. In contrast to War Dragons, because you know we were building them in parallel at the time across the two different internal studios, where like War Dragons had largely good metrics, but um, couldn't sustain long term retention. And I'm like, Harlan, you're giving away the candy for free, and you're not telling them when they're going to stop, and they're just people are getting oversaturated on it, right? It's
Mhm. Mhm.
um, like you have to put limiters on these things. And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, you're gonna groan when I say this, but we should just have an energy mechanic that limits how much people can play." And he
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, because the problem is, as we're experiencing right now, is like people can play too much, and then they they can play all they want, but they can only progress so much. So at some point they get to that point where they're like, "Oh, this is all it is," and then they stop, or they're like, "Hey, I just spent hours playing this game one day, and it was awesome. Cool. Are you gonna come back and play it tomorrow?" I mean, why would I? No, I played a ton of it.
I
It
get
was
it. I
great,
get it
but I get it.
now.
I'm done. Right? Um, it's like Halloween. You can't just like put the bowl of candy out, right? Like some kid's
I
gonna just come and eat it all and then get a sick tummy.
My memory of the origin story with War Dragons. War Dragons is it's kind of like a 4X rail shooter where you can fly different dragons around to attack other people's bases, and it was novel and cool in a bunch of ways where you could essentially join someone on their attack to try to help them win. And that was really cool in my mind. They had some
Clash of
novel
Clans
mono.
meets Panzer Dragoon.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. There were some things about it that, like, it didn't test well. It was actually not expected to succeed at launch too, because you couldn't see all of the social play impacts up front, and so the test cohorts were never big enough to allow the flames to be fanned, and so they put the game out, and they were just like, "We've got to do it." And then, it ended up taking off, and I think it would has made over $500 million pretty easily in its lifetime. I don't know if it got to 1 billion, but it was, like, very successful for a company that hadn't made a 3D game before, right?
Yeah.
Um, and, it was a neat, like, "Oh, you don't always know what you have from doing a live test." There are some things that require, like, a bigger social net. Um, and so it was really cool to see the company succeed with it. It was a neat time to be at the company. I remember being at Pocket Gems, and you're talking about, like, these, like, old 2D games, like Tap Paradise Cove. I'm like, "This isn't interesting at all." Um, they're antiquated, cloney kind of things, and then all of a sudden, this company comes out and does 2 innovative products at a
Yeah.
time where you wouldn't expect it. I thought that was really cool. It was an interesting deep time in their DNA where they could pull this off, right?
I think
Um
that's the kind of the origin story of a lot of gaming studios and gaming startups, right? Where it's
Mhm,
like somebody has a vision, and then if they're not able to execute it and have it be successful in the first iteration, they kind of have to figure out how to keep the lights on in the studio to
mhm.
then just look and say like, "Oh, okay, well, what's working and what are we capable of doing? Okay, let's go do this to kind of pay and fund the pet project or the visionary project." And like most studios find themselves stuck in that grind loop and aren't ever able to break back out of it.
Mhm.
But what was cool about Pocket Gems, and it just a testament to them and the people within, um, is that they never swayed from that vision. They were like, "Hey, we're gonna go and do some kind of Me Too games, right? Because we think it'll make some money." Um, and then every dollar made was reinvested back into how do we get these dream projects off the ground.
I thought they did a really great job with infrastructure early on, in a way where the analytics suite was really strong. The core tech, for managing client and server was, like, abnormally good for its era. So the, like, engineering and product first angle, like, gave it some unique, like, advantages for a while. And then
Mhm.
the market catches up, probably after us or at the end of our time there. But,
Yeah, yeah.
um, a neat instance of time. Well, I'm kind of curious what your bucket list is now. Like, what's left for you on this earth to do that would make you feel like you have truly lived
Um,
even
Number
more?
one is continue to be the best father that I can be to my daughter, who's
Mhm,
12, and
mhm,
give her all the support and advantages that I can offer her. Right.
mhm.
That's certainly number one in terms of what's left.
Yeah.
Like uh, the the ultimate game is a high functioning kid that is happy,
That
right?
designs the next ultimate functional game. No.
Yeah, maybe she does that. Maybe she doesn't. She
Yeah,
certainly
no
loves the game.
requirement. No requirement.
But in terms of like uh, professional career and what I'm looking to do, um, I don't know. There's a part of me that um, just wants to go indie and just build smaller, sustainable things with lower teams, right?
Yeah,
Like, I
for
I
sure.
don't have any desire to just go and pursue financial success at this point. I mean, that's an easy thing to say when you've gotten to the level that you're comfortable with, which is where I'm very thankful to be at. Uh, so a lot of it is just, I've got some ideas kicking around in my head and figuring out the right time and place and platform to deploy them on. Because I think that's the biggest trick, right? Like, you can have a great creative idea, um, but you do it too early or too late, or you put it on the wrong platform, whether that's, mobile or PC or console or a tabletop RPG or whatever, right? Um, it can just be wrong, right? So I spend a lot of time thinking about that. And then the AI elephant in the room of it's whether you want to embrace it or not, it's here, right?
Mhm.
Like, the genie is out of the bottle. There's no putting it back in. Um, no pun intended to Google's Project Genie, but um, just made that connection right after I said it.
You
Uh,
can't go back.
yeah, shit's gonna change, and it's gonna change a lot in the next couple years. So
Yeah,
right now, like, I grew up a surfer, and right now I'm just sitting outside the ocean on the shoreline, just kind of watching the waves form, and I'm waiting for the next
I
wave
get
to
that.
go in and jump on it because it's coming.
Yeah, I feel it on Substack. I'm like, there's these stories of Nirvana before they're famous with, like, the Bleach album or whatnot, and they're just playing music for their friends that think their friends will like, and then it becomes this huge explosion, and I think you and I are probably in similar positions where what I'd like to do is, like, find or build the community that's gonna make these games that are meant to sustain, but be like a community that's kind of just enjoying, like, the experience of going to a club and seeing 3 different bands play. This is like 3 different game offerings, and you're just, like, trying to figure out how to build a lifestyle business around that, like, can sustain people who are having fun gaming and exploring the design. And I agree, it's like, do you have a platform you wanna go to? I'm, like, on Substack, and I'm like, I don't think they will do this, but someone will, where you're like, "Oh, they're gonna empower creators to build games that are not Roblox," right? Roblox is kind of like not quite what we're talking about, although you could use Roblox. They have a lot of good infrastructure for it.
And they certainly they've got amazing infrastructure, and they've also got a player base, right?
They do. Yeah.
Discovery, in my opinion, is the hardest part of making games. Like,
Mhm.
you can go and make a great game, but there's just so much
It's
stuff out
really hard.
there, and that rate of stuff coming out is just increasing exponentially, right? It's like, how do you get noticed? How do you matter?
What platform would you build for today, right? That's kinda what you're speaking to. You're speaking to, like, "Hey, someone's gonna solve the place where I can build and, build what I want with my friends." Like, is that platform here now, or is it, like, you're waiting for it to drop at some point? Not that it's not a leading question, it's like, if you go off and do your bucket list-like item, like, what's the sea change you're waiting for?
The two obvious ones that are top of mind are Steam or Roblox.
Mhm,
Uh, but I'm paying really close attention to what's going on with OpenAI apps,
mhm.
um, especially, like, one of the games or the genre of games that got me into games that I played from elementary school on is all the old school LucasArts games and the Sierra games, right? So, like,
Yeah, yeah.
Quest, Police Quest, Full
Leisure
Throttle,
Suit Larry.
yeah, Leisure Suit Larry. Um, I just remember, like, coming downstairs and, like, asking my mom some obscure '80s question about some, like, actor or actress. She'd be like, "Why do you care about the cast of MASH all of a sudden?" because it was like the age verification in Leisure Suit Larry back in the day that you had to
Just tell
answer
me the answer, mom. No reasons.
random old person trivia so you could look at a CGA boob. Uh,
Oh, it's too real. What was
um,
wrong with us?
but anyway, like,
Like the modern internet kids have no idea what they were missing.
yeah. So those, the genre is often called point and click adventures, but before you could even play them with a mouse, and it was like type and whatever with your keyboard adventures. Those games have always fascinated me, and I feel like co-making one with an AI brain, with a second AI brain that can adapt in real time, like,
Mhm.
you're gonna see some pretty cool shit that comes out of that. And it may be that they end
Yeah.
up just being like a series of digital escape rooms, right? Co-authored with an AI. Um, but I
RPG
feel
games. Right. Yeah.
like the AI to me is just a way to accelerate idea generation and verify if something's working or not. It's like a faster way to signal, right?
Mhm.
So you can take that, and then there's all these like mundane, annoying parts of developing a point and click adventure game or something that's got like a lot of narrative. Like if you're good at making the brain, like you can train it on your voice, right? So it's not like I'm having the AI like replace someone. It's like, no, I was going to have to write all this copy anyway, right? And at one point, like once you've written enough, you kind of know what you were going to say anyway. So if you train the AI on yourself, you're really just talking to yourself at that point, right?
Mhm.
But its output is much faster um, than you being me in this case, right? Like, because
Mhm.
I'm lazy, right? I need breaks.
You're smart and lazy. That's what Wizards of the Coast hired for early. Like Phil Rose, who was the champion of Magic over the last 30 plus years. He just retired. But like he was famous for wanting people who were smart and lazy, who would build systems that would allow you to like continue being smart instead of like grinding yourself to a pulp.
Yeah,
Which I thought was really interesting, right?
I love that. I love that.
It's very uniquely Wizards. I don't know that that's like the ethos of today, but it definitely was like for the first decade, like how Bill thought about it. I wonder if at some point, Bill Rose, I will come for you, but not yet. Um, and we'll talk hopefully about it. Well, what games do you play with your kid? Like, what were the games that you would recommend that people like pick up along the way as their kids are growing up? That's a topic I love because I still have 7 to 10-year-old kids.
Ooh,
Yeah,
ooh, that is
yeah.
a great one.
D- Dad life comes to you.
So let's see. My daughter has been exposed to video games from, I don't know, like 2 years old, just sitting in her jumper chair watching me play stuff. Mostly Nintendo things. So she's always just been kind of infatuated. And then I had no problem letting her be a digital native and giving her a tablet at an early age and just go and mess around on Roblox and all that thing. And
Mhm.
Minecraft, we jumped into that. And in all, I want to be clear, in all of these situations, like I was there with her, right? Like adding my own account, logging in, like co-building in Minecraft. Um, that
That
one
makes
is
sense.
sort of like it's digital Legos, right? Like we
It's
started
so
with
good.
Duplos, and then we got to actual Legos, and then we got to Minecraft, and
I love
it
that
just
game.
made
Yeah.
sense. And we're in there building together.
Mhm.
Roblox, it's often a similar thing where we're, co-decorating houses together or we're running tycoon empires or gardens together or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I was a little bit nervous about it, but we played It Takes Two together, which is phenomenal co-op platformer, made by Hazelight. Shout out to those folks. But the subject matter is a little adulty at times, very
Mhm.
adulty at times, right? But there was a part of me that like I wanted her to know my background and my story. So could I use this as a way to sort of like expose her to those things in what was
Mhm.
clearly a video game and not real, right? Just so she knows that these types of things happen in life. Um, so if she ever started to ask me questions, I could be like, "Oh, well, remember in It Takes Two?" Um, and then Split Fiction, the sequel to that, awesome. And any of those co-op things, Portal 2, great co-op. A lot of ISO beat 'em ups, right? So the Lego games, those are great,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
for parent and child to play together. Things where it's like they you can they're gonna be at different levels of their learning curve in terms of their ability to play, right? So anything where you can make up the gap, right? So you're still progressing and making progress, and they don't
Mhm.
feel like they're failing or letting the team down, right? That way they can grow and get better at their own pace without getting the frustration of like, "Oh my god, we lost on this level. We have to play it again. We have to play it again. We have to play it again." Because when you play those types of games, in my experience, that just leads to tears and, "I don't like this." It no
Oh,
longer
yeah, for
becomes like
sure.
a fun, positive experience.
I like that. You're reminding me. So my kids, I got them a Nintendo Switch, and behind my back, sometimes they'll play Splatoon, and they've gotten to like level 10, and they're getting pretty good at it. And like I was like, oh, this is probably how Elon Musk got to be so highly rated at Diablo. He has so many children, he can just let them all rotate, and like I'm like, oh, I'm doing the same, but not as intentionally as he probably is. They probably can't eat dinner if they don't achieve a certain level of greatness, either with Grok AI or etc. This is a topic that came up. I saw it on Substack, and I think it's interesting because you and I know some of the same people. But this guy, Ted Joya, I think is his name. He's a music professor, and he writes a lot of stuff that's like anti-tech. He wrote that billionaires had no sense of culture and taste, and that like the tech billionaires in particular like are artless and you know there's this weird caricature, but like some of these people. Like, do you think that's fair? You think of Mark Pincus and Ben Gordon as completely artless and like tech only, or people you've met in your years?
Um, yeah, way to put me on the spot.
Well, you're the second person. I made Tinsman interesting, but
um, I would say that, uh, Bing, in my opinion, definitely has taste.
oh yeah, for sure. He was
Like,
creative.
so this is a tech billionaire, EA founder.
He was on
Um,
Amazon's board for 30 years or
yeah,
whatever, right? Yeah,
that dude just
he's
gets it, right? Like
yeah,
he's
really
he's
smart.
very in touch with everything, and he's a lifelong learner that's trying to just constantly figure out, like what the next cool thing is. So
Pretty
he
cute.
reaches out to it, right? Um,
Y You would go to his house and it would be tasteful. It wouldn't be just, you know, glass and stone or whatnot, right?
yeah. Mark
Go
is
on.
is a mix,
Yeah, I think he's a man.
right? I think sometimes I'm like, Mark, like you have lost touch with reality. Like you no longer understand your players. And how could you, right? Like the life you lead is just so different.
Yeah.
And your life has to be set up in such a way for you to be productive and get all the stuff done that you want to do. You talk about a guy with a lot of energy, like, oh my
I mean,
gosh,
he's
right?
so when he's on a roll and he's creative, like, there aren't that many people that are more fun to, like, hang around just to, like, explore fun ideas with, right? Like, just incredibly creative in, like, a very different way than most people. The good days are really great, I found with Mark from that perspective.
Hell yeah. But just to finish the thought there, I think he will have an insight, right? And he's so far ahead of where everyone else is, right? That
Mhm.
sometimes you can't see it. Like he'll say something and you'll be like, Mark, that's batshit. It just doesn't make any sense, right?
Mhm.
And what's tricky is half the time he's just so far in the future that he's actually right, and it's just hard to
Yeah.
connect the line, right? Some other percentage of the time, he's just actually out of touch with reality and bad shit,
Yes.
right? Where it's
That's
like, that's
that
not how the world works for most people. Um, Aside from them, though, what was, I think, more relevant to this is when I was at Dapper Labs in the
Mhm,
NFT space,
mhm,
right? Because this is an audience where, like, for the most part, like, ultra wealthy, like, ultra rich or recently rich from, um, crypto blowing up, right? So you've got a lot of like overnight millionaires and new money, as it were, right? Um, they have really weird ideas of this like collective they that I'm making up have really odd ideas of what matters and what works. And the reason I went to Dapper is there's this question of what's the fucking point of an NFT, right?
The good question, Justin.
And I think most people would say there is no point. It's dumb. That's it. Don't look for
Mhm.
deeper meaning. Just move on, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Uh, I I don't know what I believe about NFTs today in
Yeah.
2026, but there was a time when I signed up to join Dapper that I said there might be something there, and I'm in the fortuitous position where I can go and spend some time exploring the answer to that question.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, for a number of reasons, we weren't able to get to an answer, good or bad, just because the company was a little bit unstable in my year there. But the question still remains to some extent, like, is there value in an NFT? Um,
The next question I'll ask will actually kind of press that button, I think, which is like, okay, if you take over Magic the Gathering, the franchise, like what's one thing you would do to like improve its position in the market right now? Like you can do anything you want. You're Magic the Gathering's poobah. Like, how do you like improve right now? It's in an interesting state where it's printing money, but it's also alienating some of its audience. And so, you know, crypto is a weird thing to say, but that is a thing to say. Like, what would you be thinking? Um, how would you make magic better?
how would I make Magic better, or what would I do if I was in charge of it? Those could be different questions.
Then I have to say, but what would you do with it? I think is the easy one.
Um, that's a really good question. So for for me, what I observe, right? One, I need to get a better understanding of the data and
Mhm.
who's um what today's player base is actually into and where they spend their time. I think the easy answer is the majority of folks spend time playing Commander. Um, Probably orders of magnitude more players are playing Commander than anything else, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That would be my opening assumption going in, but I'd want
I
to
think that's true.
verify that data, right? Um, and then when I think of like what I enjoy out of Magic, right? It's limited, right? Like I love limited above all else. And I feel like part of the reason why I continue to play the game after so many years are there's two things that stand out to me, right? One is the variance that comes from the game through limited, right? Like I've tried to play constructed and to reasonable success at various points of my Magic career, um, but it never really resonated with me because at some point I'm like, this is just kind of rote memorization,
Yeah.
right? There's no longer any element of surprise, or there's very limited surprise in it.
You don't matter enough,
Yeah, you just
right? In
grind and
limited,
that's it.
your choices
Where
matter a ton.
in limited, it's like, oh, we've got these dynamic. self-correcting decisions in how we draft together. And then we're all in the same pod with the same pool. So we were able to make those choices, but they're going to dynamically change with each draft and how I choose to construct my deck, right? And then obviously some cards will be there, some cards won't be there from draft to draft. So that makes it interesting. So number one, excuse me, is the dynamism of what I think is what makes limited magic special is that, right? That it's different every time, right? And two is the people, right? I want to be able to play with um all of my friends, and I want the game to continue to be accessible for them. And if I think the best part about Magic is limited, I wish that was the most popular part of Magic, but it's not. Why
Mhm.
is it not? Because it's hard. It's really hard
It's
to
really
learn how
hard.
to play
Yeah.
limited.
It's a lot of reading there too.
A lot of reading.
You
Uh,
need it to be like cube based. You're like, hey, this is like a lifetime set that you can learn that doesn't change every, month
Dude,
or
don't
two.
steal my answer. Stop it. Dude,
Shut up, Justin. I saw you coming. It's my idea
I
now.
was what would I do to make Magic better? I would literally make every time a new set comes out, I would sell a version of it that is like a cube format,
Yeah, I like that.
right? So there's like an
It's a good
Innistrad
idea.
cube that you could just go and buy, and
Hmm.
we figure out how to make that not cannibalize other things. You know, if we need to make the cards gold border or something like that. Um, but if I could just go and buy, like rather than go and spend my cohort of players, we're all magic whales, right? We're all, 40 somethings with this is our primary hobby, so we've got money to spend at it.
I mean, I kind of wish you went down that we're all whales who can cast spells, but continue.
That as well.
That's a set design that could exist, but
So
not by the wizards. Yeah.
every new set that comes out comes with collector boosters, and you're gonna go and drop $300 to $400 on that,
Hmm.
right? What if instead I was spending that $300 to $400 on a cube, right? Like, what if there was just like a Lorwyn cube, right? That's pre-made for me, and then it's like now I have that, and it can sit on my shelf like a board game,
Yeah.
right? And I can bust it out, um, and not have to worry about all the other things that come with limited that make it difficult and add friction points.
Yeah, that's what I want. I think you did a great job of building to the answer. I feel like, um, yeah, I think like I always wanted a cube. I built a cube at Wizards in 2003 or so in the old building, and I was like, I just want all the cards I loved in a box, and I'm like good, right? So my brother has that today, but it's like I could see it coming. It's like, oh, at some point my life will be too full for me to keep up with all this nonsense. So I love that idea. Is there an IP like Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse or some sort of IP that would be your contribution to UB? If you had your druthers, you're like, this is what I would selfishly want. Not that it doesn't have to be Pee Wee Herman. In fact, I wouldn't have
I
put you
mean,
on
that's
that.
a pretty good one. That's now I have to think about where that fits in my top 10 because it'll probably
Yeah.
find its way in there. Um, if I had to pick something, I would pick um, Jim Henson's Muppets.
Ooh, that's a really good one. That's a great one. You could have so much fun with that.
And it might be seen as somewhat cheating because they just had that like amazing marketing campaign with
Yeah, I saw that.
the goblins for Eclipsed. But I'd been thinking about that idea before it. So when I saw that marketing campaign and the reels, oh my god, the reels are so good that they do for those where they're doing their little podcast. It feels like us right now. Um,
A little bit.
they just have better makeup than us.
Where's the AI filter that allows us to be Muppets of our own design or whatnot? Just AI generate us into Muppets, please.
Oh, that definitely exists on Snapchat.
Yeah, you're right. But how do you know this? What do you do in your spare time? It makes sense. It actually makes sense given what Justin is focused on, right? It's research, right?
Hmm. Yes,
It just makes sense.
new
Well, cool.
product development.
Yeah, that's kind of a great place to be and where you seem to spend a lot of your time. Oh, I know what I wanna ask. So, one thing that's happened is that I posted some stuff to Instagram and, just kind of like, pressing buttons to learn what they do. That's generally what this whole project has been about. But, the one went to 1.5 million views, and, we've talked about magic a lot, but the one that went viral, not that that was ever a goal, it was more like, "Hey, what does this button do?" Was a video about how to beat Monopoly, like, "If you wanna win at Monopoly, do this," and it was, "Don't buy hotels." And that clip ended up it passed 1.5 million this morning, and it's just going. It's not useful to me at all because it's my what I'm doing isn't Monopoly related. But like, if you were going to take a shot at a 1.5 beating that clip, what would you do? What's your clip idea?
Oof, oof.
I know this is hard because it was completely random and lucky the first time.
I think if you have some sort of like life pro tip or like
Hmm.
fun hack, right?
Yeah,
That you can fit into a what, like a 30-second or less little,
say 20-second. Yeah.
yeah, explanation. That's kind of what it is, right? Like you just need hot takes, or some fun little piece of knowledge.
Yeah, I'm like wondering what topic would even like. We've all played Monopoly, right? Everyone has played it. Anyone can say, "Man, that game sucks," and it's enjoyable to to say that because it does. But no offense, wife, but she likes Monopoly, but she doesn't accept the fact that like there are reasons not to like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what game would be or topic would be appropriate, but it's not what we're talking about now. I'm sure, and that's okay because we don't really need to reach that height.
I'm gonna noodle on this now.
Yeah, you've got
if,
time.
if you can't tell, Brian and I did very little preparation for this. We're
You
just
have
kind of,
there's a whole outline. If I
yeah,
could show
it's
visuals, I could.
just outline, and it's guided the discussion. But
Yeah,
um, I think we looked at it separately, and like that one in particular, if I would have had that prompt with a couple days to think about it, I would have come in with some bad ideas, right? I'm not saying any of them would have been good or gone viral, but it
yeah,
would have been a fun little thought challenge, to try and come here and be like, okay, here's my joke.
yeah. I think one thing that's interesting about this chat is like early on, I was like, I think it'd be fun to talk to Justin, and so Justin was like, I sent him the early version of like how I was thinking about these things, and I didn't even tell him that we would be recording on Substack, which is where we record all of this. Like all the information that would have made it possible for you to prepare wasn't supplied to you. So like I feel like you've done an incredibly good job of rolling with it.
It
And
makes it more fun, in my opinion.
I think your Muppet IP thing for Magic would probably be my bet for you have some really good stories in there. Ben Steck had a great story about how his dad passed and then he met his wife a month later and then that's been a bridge to children and the internet didn't love it. I was like, I love this. And I just thought it was so sweet and like I just wanted to give him a hug. And I thought it was a beautiful piece. And then the internet didn't agree. They didn't say anything bad about it, but it was like, the internet doesn't like to feel things, I think.
That's the thing about the internet. It's like you never know what mood it's going
Mm-mm.
to be when it wakes up that day.
Yeah.
Like it can just decide that it wants to, celebrate the life of some amazing person that just passed, or it can decide that it just wants to throw hate and vitriol at someone deserving or undeserving
Yeah.
of it. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the unpredictability from this current regime, like ICE does something terrible, and you're like, well, that changes everybody's perspective on that day. Half the days people are happy, and half the days people are like pitchforky, and you don't know what you're waking up to every day. It's almost, it's more interesting and emotional than we might want.
Yeah, for sure. I try to
Hmm.
stay off of it
Yeah, it's like
by and
it's a
large.
good, yeah, Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, that's been a weird change. Starting this project, I had deleted all the social media apps, and I had finished 20 books, and I was, like, on a roll. I was exercising a lot, and then I
Yeah.
started this project, and, like, you actually have to use the internet a lot to learn how the internet works, and
Yeah, that
it's
sounds
been, like
unfortunate. But
yeah, yeah.
what's interesting is I was in this quest of like, how do I can't obviously completely unplug from the internet because then I would just lose touch with reality. And I don't think that would be good for myself or, I make products for other people. I don't make products or games for myself. I mean, I could, but um, it's a lot more rewarding to me to make something and put a smile on someone else's face because that in turn is going to put the smile back on my face. So yada yada yada. You kind of got to know what's relevant, and in order to know what's relevant, you got to be plugged into the internet.
Mhm.
But I've been on this quest the last couple of years of like, what is what's the healthy internet look like? Like, what was that
I like
internet that
that.
we had in college,
That's
right?
a good question.
That you could
Oh,
just
yeah, that was
you could
good.
just go and find a web ring,
Mhm.
right? And then it's like like-minded people have formed this web ring and they all have their independent sites and they're giving props to each other. And you're like, this is my people. This is my tribe. Whether it's irreverent humor or like deep knowledge of comic books or some nerdy habit or, just whatever. Like you could find your group on the internet. And now I feel like with the advent of social media, like someone let all the idiots in, right?
I didn't say it, but I thought it, and I can't take it I can't unthink it. I definitely was like, "Yes, that happened."
Like there used to be friction to
Yeah,
publish anything on the internet, right? So only people that either were smart enough to figure it out and or just like had something worthwhile to say that they were willing to put themselves through the friction because what they had was really interesting. So that was the type of content that mostly permeated the internet and it was glorious, right?
yeah.
But once you lower the bar of entry and any idiot can just
Also,
tweet
there's no accountability.
and there's
There's
no
no
accountability.
yeah, yeah.
So it just becomes a free for all of nonsense. So I'm trying to find like what is I'm not trying to necessarily recreate the past, although that could be cool. And some of the project ideas I have kicking around are semi related to that, but that's more of like a retro nostalgia play than anything I think could be like massively mainstream. But who knows? But what are these like healthy places that you can go to on the internet and just find your like minded people? And I had heard a bunch of people talking about Substack, and
Yeah, it's
it
pretty
made
good.
me aware. I am not being paid by them or anything like that. I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I see smart people on there, and
Mhm.
then that was actually like I wasn't seeking you out. I just saw that you were on there, and I was like, "Oh, neat. Let me see what this gentleman has to say." Because back when we used to work together, you always had interesting things to say. We didn't always agree, but it was always a good conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
And that feels like what Substack is, or at least could be, right? I'm seeing that there's also a lot of like noise and random shit as you're going to find with any platform. But if there's anything out there that maybe has the potential to be like, hey, this is sort of my social media. It's like what Reddit was before they screwed up and pissed off their community.
Yeah. Reddit
Like,
was really cool for its time.
yeah, now
Uh,
Reddit is just
it'll
garbage
die, I
because
think. Yeah.
it's unmoderated and it's really just bots talking to each other. It's um what is uh Moltbook?
Yeah, it's like Moltbook, right?
Yeah. It's
It's
like
like, you could have just gone to Reddit.
like, well, yeah,
Like,
why do we need
why are we
Moltbook?
talking about
We already
this?
have
Yeah.
Reddit. Like people are like, "Oh, check this out. The AI made their own social media." And I'm like, what do you mean? It's just Reddit."
Yeah, I like, Twitter has been like this for an awful long time. Yeah, I think Substack has been pretty good. It's definitely got a lot of discovery and, like, search problems. It doesn't seem like you can find what you're looking for very easily, but if you invest a lot of time into it, you eventually find them. I just did this thing where I was like, "All right, I'm gonna make a note, and all the people I know who work on games, I'm gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna put them in this note and tag them and hope that their audience, like, tells me who I should add so that anyone can find anyone else," which is, like, a really bizarre behavior. It's kind of fun just to see what'll happen, but we're all really disconnected. You can't find each other. Their search is notoriously bad. It's interesting if I typed in Cinicolo and there were like at Cinicolo to add you to this thing, and it wouldn't like acknowledge that you're someone that is attached to me or close to me. It
Mhm.
would just put you in a random list, and you're like, what the? So it's kind of like a startup product. I will have to go pretty soon, I believe. That
Okay.
is the mothership summoning to me to wherever it is I need to go. But um, yeah, there are some interesting aspects. I do think it's a really great, like, question of our lifetime. How do these platforms get designed well? Is Discord good? That's one that Loren and Bazzi talked about as being good. Facebook groups have some goodness based on what you're describing, but neither's perfect, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Discord's an interesting one. Um, again, I feel like one of the chatbot platforms, whether it's OpenAI or Gemini or Claude or whatever, um, I feel like there's the potential for it to be figured out there in relatively short order.
Yeah.
Like once you add a social graph to any of those tools, and then the AI can go and make the connections, or you can just prompt the AI like, "Hey, give me a list of all my associates that do X."
That I would really want. I'd also like to be able to prompt my feed so I can, like, essentially direct it or instruct it a little bit better, like, in tandem with whatever they wanna force upon me, but just being able to interface with the information that's being surfaced to me more, like, letting me have, like, more. Right now, people can't like my content if they don't wanna see gamey stuff, right?
Right.
And so I have friends on the platform who can't, like, engage with what I'm doing because then it changes the algorithm for them, which is the correct behavior from their perspective, but from my perspective, it's pretty sad.
Mhm.
And so, like, being able to just essentially talk to search, talk to, these different interfaces and, like, make them what you want would be awesome. There's a whole lot of things I wanna see, like, in a more developer forward platform. That's something we haven't seen, but if we can all vibe code together, like, that ends up being a very different style of platform than, like, share text or share images, right?
Do you remember when, Google first launched its attempt at a social network to compete with Facebook? I believe
I do remember this, the circles, yeah.
Circles, yeah, and the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
thing was these, like, Venn diagram circles of different parts in your network of like, "Oh, these are my professional friends. This is my family. This is the people that I'm in a bowling league with," or whatever else, right? And
Mhm.
they're all gonna overlap, right? And that was the concept of the circles, right?
It was cool.
Which I think was really incredibly insightful and smart on Google's behalf. So shout out to, whatever product manager, whoever came up with that idea. Um, the problem was like curating your circles was such a pain in the ass. It was just like, I never want to do this. Like the maintenance was just so hard, right?
If it was automated, you would do it, right?
Take that concept and have uh GPT do all the heavy lifting for you, right? Or just like
Mhm.
give you like, hey, here's what I think, and now you just go and massage it a little bit, right? There's a there
Yeah.
there.
In building this yellow pages or whatnot, I just wanna write a SQL query that attaches to a database, put it in a web page, and then, like, whoever's new or whoever fades from view and isn't active, like, would just automatically update or not. Like, it would be nice to be able to, like, have a bit more control on, like, automating the life on these platforms, and that's actually I use Claude in between doing these calls. I'm like, "Can I create a central controller for media management that allows me to have, like, a more sane life? Because it's a lot to manage all these different platforms all the time, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I actually love this topic. I think it's how do you, like, get AI search like to work properly is a very interesting one. How do you surface the right information at the right time, in the right degree? And then how do you like connect that through social networks and how do you create the right group dynamic? I think that's the next problem like of our age. So it's not surprising that you would land in a similar spot, but like it is the most interesting topic set for me.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to go because I'm a parent too, but I find you incredibly interesting to this day and implore you to stay interesting. And I appreciate you coming on.
I'll do my best.
Did
Right.
you figure out what you would do for 1.5? No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I did have a framing for you. Last thing. So Mafia Wars did a video with Snoop Dogg. He comes late, he blocks the camera, he blows up a truck. Could you make that a meme and then have him blow up all kinds of different things, like cute stuffed bunny rabbits, or you know what I mean? Like, what would you have him blow up, and then you would miss the viewer based on the meme?
Oh, I have actually seen Snoop memes. After that infamous event took place, we definitely had a couple of those going around the office.
Yeah, it's still funny to me.
It's amazing. But
He's
my
lovable no matter what he does, right?
my favorite part of that is in that shot um, is the Scott Konigsberg, amazing friend and colleague.
Mhm.
I believe he's the CPO at Zynga.
Yeah.
He replaced me as GM of Mafia War, so he was out there on site, and you can see in the shot that like Scotty's able to see like what the stream sees. So it's all going down, and you just see Scott's face like as he knows that they spent so much money to set all this up, and Snoop got in front of the shot. So it's like when you actually watch the real clip, right? It's like watching a reaction video. You're just watching Snoop's reaction to blowing up a car. You're not actually watching him
Oh,
blow up a car. Oh
oh
shit, that
shit.
was really cool. Wish you
In
could
some
have
ways,
seen it.
there are so many things that he could blow up that could get a Snoop Dogg reaction at this point. That's the one I want. I'm not going to make it, but it's the one I want. There's so many fun things you could have him explode and not know what it is. Uh, and that's where I went. You triggered that in me at least.
That's good.
That's that's what I wanted. Well, if you do come up with a $1.5 billion or view idea, the dollars are more valuable, it turns out, than the views.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, right on. I'm glad you're well. Keep gaming.
You as well, sir. Thanks for the
All right.
opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, live your life.
I'll catch you later.
Take it easy, boss.